Alright guys, for this next set of videos we are talking about a concept called meiosis. Now don't get this confused about mitosis, which we just went over. This is a similar process but dealing with a different set of cells. And at the very end of these videos I'll go over a quick overview of the comparison between these two. Okay, so in our bodies, we have two types of cells. Now, the vast majority of them are one type, and a very small amount are this other type. But we're actually going to focus on this other amount for this set of videos. So, the majority of our body is composed of somatic cells. And as you can see, they're also known as body cells. So they're called something known in the scientific kind of realm as diploid, or 2N. We will talk a lot more about this in a couple slides. So for now, keep that in the back of your head. So these are a lot of cells that we've been talking about, blood cells, heart cells, skin cells, hair cells. All these cells fall into this body cell, or the somatic cell kind of umbrella. Now, for these videos, we're going to be talking about gametes, or sex cells. So again, these are called haploids. So you can keep that in your head. Diploid for body cells, haploid for gametes. And we only have two examples here. We have our egg and sperm cell, obviously. Egg coming from females and sperm cells coming from males. So, in the human body, we have sets of chromosomes. And we've talked about this. And as you know, we have 46 sets of chromosomes. Other animals might have more or fewer sets, but we as humans have 46 sets of chromosomes. Now, these chromosomes, like the cells, are split into two types. The first type are called autosomes. So these ones make up a lot of our human body. Again, similar to the body cells, the autosomes are the vast majority of the pairs that we have. These chromosomes give rise to, the majority of our structure, our overall makeup, I guess, as a person. So, to our right, we have all of our chromosomes. I think earlier I misspoke. So we have 23 sets of chromosomes. We have 46 overall chromosomes. So to the right, chromosomes 1 through 44 are all autosomes. Okay? So all but the very last pair is going to be autosomes. Now, the next set are called sex chromosomes. So these also carry some traits, but also determine your gender. Okay, so these types of traits, so for men, often men are taller, there's a higher presence of testosterone. Women develop differently, so they can bear children, and they have higher levels of estrogen. And also these give rise to our differences in anatomy compared to males and females. So the only sex chromosomes that we have are 45 and 46. So again, the very last pair to the right. But as you know, that last pair can really give rise in pretty significant differences between males and females. So, we're going to dig a little deeper now. We're going to talk about something called homologous chromosomes. We're kind of peeling back the layers and getting more and more specific here. So we're comparing two things. We're comparing a homologous chromosome to something we just learned in the previous set of videos, sister chromatids. So the word homologous means the same. So not necessarily identical, but the same something. So homologous chromosomes have the same types of genes. Okay, so they might not have the exact same sequence, but two genes both might code for the color of your hair. And what we'll find in a little bit is that this is because we get one set from our mom and one set from our dad. So both of those sets might code for the same thing, but they're not quite identical. Now, that is different from, so this would be an example of a homologous chromosome, the circle that is around that pair. So they're not perfectly identical, but they code for the same thing. Now, sister chromatids are two identical copies of the same chromosome. So if we look to the right, our X's kind of that we've been talking about, both of those chromatids code for the exact same thing. And they're the exact same sequence. So that's the biggest difference. Homologous chromosomes are a pair that have the same types of genes, but they're not identical sequences because one's from your mom, one's from your dad, whereas sister chromatids are identical copies. They are the exact same sequence. So as a quick review from last time, long ago when we were talking about DNA, so genes, the sequence of letters, the sequence of base pairs, remember A and T match up in DNA and C and G. So those genes together make up our DNA. The DNA wound up really tight, makes up our histones. And then those histones wound up, make up our chromosome. And then the chromosomes are all found in the nucleus. So again, keep that in mind. So this is where our diploid and haploid cells kind of come into play. So recall our somatic cells, our body cells, are diploid, and our sex cells, our gametes, are haploid. So when it says diploid, what it means, it has two full sets of chromosomes. So we're talking about getting a set from your mom and from your dad. Okay, so this is post, sexual reproduction. This is where you are already developed. So again, our somatic cells are going to be 2N. So all of our body cells, other than gametes, have both these sets of chromosomes. Now, our haploid cells, right, our gametes, don't. So our gametes only have one set. So egg cells only have one set of chromosomes. Sperm cells only have one set of chromosomes. Okay? So that's where that N comes from instead of being 2N. Right? Because our goal is to end up with two full sets. So if our egg and sperm both had two full sets, instead of ending up with two, we would actually end up with four. So we want 1 plus 1 instead of 2 plus 2. So during sexual reproduction, again, review thinking back as opposed to asexual reproduction, where we only need one cell, right? A cell dividing through just mitosis is asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction, we need two different kind of parties being involved. So during sexual reproduction, you end up with multiple stages. Okay, so this is where you can see where it says meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Okay, so we end up with a starting cell. We end up with 4 kind of daughter cells. And so we'll talk a lot more about that very shortly, probably in the next video. So again, sexual reproduction, this is kind of like the book definition, just to get it across. So to reproduce sexually, there's a fusion of genetic information using gametes from 2 different parents. So the result is that there's an offspring that isn't identical to either one. It's a mixture, right? All of you are a mixture of your parents. You have half and half. Even though you might look more like one or the other, you are exactly half and half of both. So the action of the egg and sperm coming together to form what we call a zygote is known as fertilization. So ultimately, a zygote is just a body where the egg and the sperm have successfully come together and they're beginning to divide. So before we go really in depth into meiosis, I want to review the overall kind of purpose and the reason why we have to have this. So first off, meiosis is all about creating these gametes, these sex cells. The sole purpose is sexual reproduction, to the sperm and the egg to come together to form a new offspring. And so we have to call these haploid because they don't have the 2 sets of chromosomes. They only have 1 set of chromosomes. And again, these are only for sexual reproduction. And so our end goal is to have 46 chromosomes. And so to get there, we get 23 from our mom and 23 from our dad. That's where we end up with that 46 in total. So before you move forward, you should be able to go back and compare all of these. You should know the difference between somatic cells and gametes, the difference between diploid and haploid, autosomes versus sex chromosomes, and homologous chromosomes versus sister chromatids. So if you can't immediately off the top of your head compare all these, I would go back, write all of these down on your notes, and get a comparison, and that's going to help you moving forward.